Hello, my name is Liam Carter. I'm 29 years old, living in Portland, Oregon City, often shrouded in fog, with streets bordered by lush trees. I work as a graphic designer, a profession that lets me lose myself in a realm of colors and lines, where I have complete control, a stark contrast to real life. I'm not someone who easily opens up. My friends often describe me as quiet, maybe even reserved. But if you've ever experienced the profound abandonment by your family, as I have, you'd understand why I've constructed these invisible barriers around myself. This narrative isn't simple to share, yet today, just this once, I want to. Reveal it to finally confront a memory that has haunted me for the past 15 years. It all began with an email. One Saturday morning, I was in my small apartment, my cat Rusty, dozing on the sofa, when I opened my laptop. A blinking subject line caught my eye. Mom and Dad's 25th wedding anniversary celebration. Sender, Mia Carter, my younger sister. My brow furrowed and my pulse quickened. Mia, for years my junior, was someone I hadn't directly spoken to since leaving home at 18. A part of me urged me to delete it immediately, but I clicked on the email anyway. Dear Liam, it read, I know it's been a long time since we've connected. I hope you're doing well. Mom and Dad are hosting their 30th wedding anniversary celebration back home in Montana next month. They want the entire family to reunite. You are a part of this family. I truly hope you'll come. I reread it repeatedly, each word piercing my chest like a small blade. You're a part of this family? Really, Mia? A bitter laugh escaped me, but the smile vanished instantly. Old recollections surged, a cold wave pulling me back to that summer day when I was 14, left behind at a Yellowstone rest stop. That memory, like a permanent scar, has never truly faded. I grew up in a lower-middle-class family, in a modest Montana town. Our dwelling was an aged wooden cabin, its backyard overrun with weeds and a precarious fence. My father, Robert, a car mechanic, always wore a perpetually grim expression and possessed a voice as sharp as a razor. My mother, Ellen, a bank employee, always seemed fatigued and subdued, as if she had ceased to feel anything at all. Then there was Mia, my younger sister, the absolute darling of my parents' affections. She was quite intelligent and always knew how to make them chuckle. I, conversely, was the complete opposite. The awkward, silent eldest child who consistently seemed to err. I can't pinpoint precisely what I did to become the perceived troublemaker in my parents' eyes. Perhaps it was shattering one of Mom's cherished vases at 7, or earning a poor grade in 5th grade. But I distinctly recall the way Dad would look at me, as if I were a defect needing correction. Why can't you be more like Mia? He'd often inquire, his voice heavy with disappointment. Mom would remain silent, her gaze avoiding mine. And Mia, she'd just gaze at me with her large round eyes, saying nothing, seemingly fearful of angering our parents. When I was 14, my family embarked on a camping trip to Yellowstone National Park. It was a rare excursion, proclaimed by Mom as an opportunity for family bonding. I felt enthusiastic, believing I'd finally have a chance to alter my parents' perception of me. I meticulously packed my belongings, double-checking every item on Mom's list. However, everything unraveled on the trip's second day. That afternoon, I was struggling to set up an old worn-out tent that Dad had used since his youth. While wrestling with it, I inadvertently ripped a small corner. It wasn't a significant tear, just minor, but it was enough to send Dad into a furious rage. What the hell are you doing, Liam? He bellowed, his face flushed with fury. I attempted to explain, but my voice was swallowed by his shouts. You don't know how to care for things, do you? If you're so useless, then fend for yourself. Mom stood motionless, arms crossed, uttering no sound. Mia, then 10, clutched her doll, looking at me with terrified eyes. I longed to scream, to apologize, to do anything to rectify it, but Dad had made up his mind. Get in the car, Ellen, Mia. We're leaving. He turned to me, his voice chillingly cold. As for you, find your own way back. I stood there paralyzed, watching the family's truck depart from the rest stop, a cloud of dust billowing behind. The tires. I can still recall that sensation, as if my heart were being crushed. All I possessed was a tattered backpack, a bottle of water, and not a single coin in my pocket. I trudged along the path to the nearest rest area, about a mile from our campsite. The rest stop was a small roadside spot with a convenience store, a few gas pumps, and a parking lot filled with trucks. The sun was setting, and I, a 14-year-old, was marooned in the middle of nowhere. I aimlessly roamed the rest stop, fighting back tears. I didn't want anyone to perceive me as feeble. I discovered a secluded nook behind the convenience store, where an old wooden bench and a few trash cans stood. I sat there, clutching my backpack, listening to the sound of trucks hurtling down the highway. Each time headlights swept past, I secretly hoped it was Dad returning for me. But no one came back. That night was frigid. I curled up on the bench, attempting to warm myself with my thin jacket. The chirping of insects, the roar of passing trucks, and the frantic pounding of my heart filled the air. I considered calling someone, but I lacked a phone. I contemplated walking home, but home was dozens of miles distant. All I could do was sit there, waiting, hoping, and fearing. I questioned if I truly belonged to the family, or if I was merely a burden they were eager to discard. I closed my eyes, struggling to suppress the tears welling up. "Don't cry, Liam," I admonished myself. "If you cry, they win." But the truth was, I was terrified. I was terrified they wouldn't return. Terrified I'd be stuck indefinitely at this roadside rest stop, surrounded by strangers and the relentless sound of trucks. I gripped my backpack tightly, as if it were the sole object preventing me from plummeting into an abyss. Hints of dawn emerged, painting the sky a soft orange. I heard footsteps. They were heavy, unhurried, like someone taking their time. I looked up, my eyes blurred from sleeplessness in the bone-chilling cold. An elderly man, clad in a worn flannel jacket and a faded baseball cap, stood observing me. His face was weathered, with wrinkles like miniature roads etched on a map, yet his eyes held a gentle kindness, as if they had witnessed much but still retained a spark of warmth. "You're Liam, aren't you?" he inquired, his voice low and slightly raspy, like old wood rubbing together. I nodded, too weary to be surprised. It was my grandfather, Walter, someone I had only encountered a handful of times in my life during brief visits when my father couldn't avoid taking me to his farm. My father and grandfather had a strained relationship. Dad often called him a stubborn old man, while Grandpa claimed Dad only knew how to growl, not how to love. Their animosity meant I rarely saw Grandpa. However, each time we met, I sensed he perceived me differently from my parents. He looked at me as if I genuinely existed. "Why are you out here alone?" he asked, settling onto the wooden bench beside me. He didn't immediately press for an answer, simply pulling a cigarette from his jacket pocket, then returning it, seemingly recalling my presence. I didn't want to disclose the truth. Admitting my parents had abandoned me because I ripped a tent sounded utterly pathetic. I was afraid that if I spoke, I'd break down and weep. I didn't want him to witness my vulnerability, but he didn't. "Push!" He just patted my shoulder, a light yet firm gesture, like a silent pledge. "Come on, kid," he said, rising. I was about to grab some coffee, but it looks like you need breakfast more. He led me into the rest stop's convenience store, where the aroma of burnt coffee and toasted bread intermingled with the faint scent of motor oil. He purchased an egg sandwich and a cup of hot chocolate for me, a treat I hadn't had since childhood. Meal, its warmth spreading through me, as if dispelling some of the cold and dread in my heart. We sat in a quiet corner of the store, at a sticky plastic table. He sipped his black coffee, unsweetened, and observed me. "You don't have to explain." "If you're not ready," he remarked calmly. But I know a 14-year-old doesn't just spend the night shivering outdoors for no reason. I gazed down at my hands, soiled from clutching my backpack throughout the night. I yearned to say something, but my throat felt constricted. Instead, I simply nodded, and he seemed to comprehend. After breakfast, he guided me to his old pickup truck, a blue Ford with cracked leather seats and a faint tobacco aroma. "Let's head to my place," he stated, not asking. I didn't object. I had no other destination. And the idea of leaving that rest stop brought more relief than I anticipated. Grandpa's farm was about an hour's drive away, nestled amid sprawling fields and gentle hills in Montana. His wooden house was modest but inviting, with a vine-covered porch and an old barn. In the backyard? Inside, everything was straightforward but tidy. A well-worn armchair, small fireplace, and family photographs hanging askew on the walls. I noticed a picture of myself at 5 years old, perched on Grandpa's shoulders, grinning broadly. It didn't recall that moment, but seeing the photos sent a sharp ache through my chest. He offered me a bowl of hot bean soup, which he'd prepared himself, and showed me to a small room with a single bed draped in a wool blanket. "Rest," he instructed. "You're safe now." I lay down, still gripping my backpack, and fell asleep. Within minutes, it was the most profound sleep I had ever experienced, devoid of dreams or worries. Just the feeling of being protected, even if only temporarily. The subsequent few days at Grandpa's farm passed like a serene dream. He didn't compel me to discuss what had transpired, but he was perpetually there, quietly observing. He taught me how to care for the horses, how to mend a fence, and recounted tales from his military service. "Life isn't easy, Liam," he imparted one afternoon as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "But you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, he retrieved an old pocket watch from his jacket. Its glass face slightly scratched, but the second hand still moved steadily. "This belonged to my grandfather," he said, placing it in my palm. "Survived wars, endured hardships, and it still functions. It'll remind you that time heals, but only if you choose to advance." I clutched the watch tightly, feeling its weight, as if it contained a narrative I wasn't yet prepared to fully grasp. I remained at the farm for 3 days, but on the 4th, Grandpa declared we had to face reality. "I'll take you back," he stated firmly, "but I'm not letting this go unaddressed." I didn't want to return. I wished to stay with him where I felt I truly belonged. But I knew he was correct. I couldn't conceal myself forever. The drive back home was a lengthy and somber journey. I sat in the passenger seat, gripping my worn backpack, my fingers absently tracing the pocket watch in my jacket. Its steady ticking was my sole source of calm. Grandpa said little, only glancing at me periodically, as if to confirm I was still all right, but I wasn't all right. I dreaded returning to that house, where I had never truly felt welcome. When Grandpa's truck pulled up in front of the house, I saw Dad standing there, arms crossed, his eyes cold and sharp. Mom was at the kitchen window, looking out but not stepping outside. Mia, the 10-year-old, with her blonde hair tied in a ponytail, peeked from behind the front door, her large eyes filled with apprehension. Grandpa exited the truck, shoulders squared, his gait unwavering. I overheard him and Dad arguing. Grandpa's voice booming like thunder. "If you ever abandon that boy again, I'll report you to Child Protective Services." "Do you hear me, Robert?" Dad let out a dry, scornful laugh. "You think you can frighten me, old man?" But I observed Grandpa's eyes, unwavering, like someone who had endured war and feared no one. He turned to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, heavy but comforting. "You don't need to belong to them to be worthy of love," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "If you need me, you know where to find me." Then he re-entered the truck, the engine roared to life, and he drove away, leaving me standing in the yard, feeling as though I had just lost the only person who truly understood me. Entering the house, I felt the oppressive weight of a heavy silence. Dad said not a word, merely glaring at me before retreating into the garage. Mom continued washing dishes, the clinking of plates the only sound in the kitchen. Mia looked at me, her lips parting as if she wished to speak, but then she turned and ran upstairs. No one mentioned Yellowstone. No one apologized. It was as if leaving me at the rest stop had simply been a bad dream they wished to erase. But for me, it was real, raw, and painful, like an open wound. I learned to exist invisibly in my own home. I attended school, completed my homework, ate dinner in silence, and avoided my parents' gaze. Dad continued to label me a troublemaker whenever I did something he disliked, even if it was just spilling a glass of water. Mom was like a phantom, always occupied with work or tending to Mia as if I didn't exist. Mia, though still young, became distant. I observed her striving to please our parents, always smiling, always compliant, so fearing that if she wasn't flawless, she'd be treated as I was. I didn't blame her. She was just a child, and I knew she was frightened too. In the ensuing years, I lived like a mere resident in my own family. I kept everything to myself, from small joys like drawing in my room to larger sorrows I dared not express. Grandpa's pocket watch became my constant companion. Each night I lay in bed, listening to its ticking, imagining that time would transport me away from this place. I penned letters to Grandpa, lengthy missives about school, my sketches, and the solitude I felt. He replied with scrawled notes on yellowed paper, always concluding with, "You're stronger than you think." When I turned 18, I left home. A scholarship to a college in Portland, Oregon, and didn't hesitate for a moment. I packed my clothes, books, and the pocket watch into an old suitcase and boarded a bus without glancing back. My parents didn't see me off. Mia, then 14, stood at the doorway, offering a weak wave. I wanted to say something to her, but I simply nodded and turned away. I didn't wish to carry any memories from that house, yet they trailed me regardless, like shadows I couldn't cast off. Portland offered a fresh start, but it wasn't effortless. Worked part-time at a coffee shop, sketched at night, and learned how to live independently. I leased a small apartment with windows overlooking damp streets and verdant trees. I adopted a cat, naming him Rusty for his orange fur. He became my sole companion. I forged a few friendships at school, kind individuals who didn't truly comprehend me. I didn't blame them. I had constructed walls too high and I didn't know how to dismantle them. Graphic design emerged as a lifeline. I discovered joy in crafting worlds on a screen where I could command every detail. I toiled diligently, established a stable career, and progressively evolved into a version of Liam I didn't resent. Yet deep down, I remained that 14-year-old boy abandoned at the rest stop, clutching a backpack and awaiting a miracle. My modest apartment in Portland served as a sanctuary, its walls adorned with sketches and bathed in the gentle glow of a desk lamp. Rusty, my orange tabby cat, frequently curled up on the sofa, yawning as I toiled late into the night. My life, though simple, had found its own rhythm. Morning coffee, design projects, and quiet evenings accompanied by the steady ticking of the pocket watch Grandpa had given me. I believed I had found tranquility, but then, as I mentioned Mia's email, shattered it all. It was a Saturday morning, light rain pattering against the window, enveloping Portland in a dense fog. I was at my laptop sipping coffee when the email notification appeared. Subject: Mom and Dad's 30th wedding anniversary celebration. Sender: Mia Carter. My heart pounded as if someone had roughly tugged it. I stared at the subject, line my finger hovering over the mouse. Part of me yearned to delete the email instantly, just as I had endeavored to erase all familial memories from my life. But another part, small and inquisitive, urged me to open it. I read and reread Mia's email, letting out a dry, almost hysterical laugh. The sound reverberated in the quiet apartment, startling Rusty, who lifted his head. Part of the family? How ludicrous. After all those years of being treated as an outsider, abandoned at a rest stop, forgotten in my own home, and now they desired to reclaim me? I felt anger, yet it was intertwined with something else, an almost painful curiosity. What did they genuinely want? A perfect family portrait to display to neighbors? Or had they genuinely changed? I rose, pacing the small living room. Rusty jumped down and rubbed against my legs as if trying to console me. I picked up the pocket watch, its second hand still ticking steadily. A reminder of Grandpa's words: time heals, but only if you choose to move forward. But what did moving forward entail? Forgetting? Forgiving? Or confronting it directly? I opened my desk drawer and retrieved the old photograph Grandpa had taken of me at the rest stop. In it, I'm seated on the wooden bench, hair disheveled, eyes red, but my lips curved into a forced smile. I don't know why he captured that image, but now it served as evidence of a pain I couldn't deny. I placed the photo beside my laptop, gazing at my 14-year-old self, and pondered, Liam, how far have you come? That entire day, I accomplished nothing. My design projects lay untouched on the screen, their lines blurring in my mind. I contemplated Montana, the aged wooden house, my parents, and Mia. I recalled the infrequent times Mia tried to converse with me after the Yellowstone incident. Her eyes were always filled with guilt and apprehension, as if mentioning it would provoke our parents' anger. I didn't blame her. She was young, and in our family, appeasing our parents was the sole path to survival. But now Mia was 25, a promising young lawyer, from what I'd overheard from a few acquaintances back home. What did she intend by sending this email? I sat down, composed a reply, then deleted it. Wrote another, then deleted that one too. Mia, thanks, but I'm not sure I want to come. Too weak. Mia, I don't belong to that family anymore. It's too bitter. Ultimately, I closed the laptop without sending anything. But Mia's email was like a persistent pebble in my shoe, impossible to disregard. That night I lay in bed, listening to the rain tapping against the window. Rusty curled up beside me, his breathing calm. I held the pocket watch, feeling its weight in my hand. I thought of Grandpa, how he had rescued me not merely from the rest stop, but from the feeling that I was unworthy of affection. I recalled his letters, his handwritten words, "You're stronger than you think." I wondered what he would advise if I called him now. Perhaps he'd tell me to go, not for my parents or Mia, but for myself, so I could stand tall and confront my past. The next morning I called Jack, a close college friend, the only person I'd ever confided in about Yellowstone. Jack, an artist, was always direct and never allowed me to wallow in despair. "What are you considering, Liam?" he asked when I informed him about Mia's email. "What do you hope to achieve by going?" "I don't know," I confessed, my voice uncertain. "I just want to know if they've truly changed. Or perhaps I want them to see I'm no longer that useless child." Jack remained silent for a moment, then responded, "Then go. But not for them. Go because you deserve to face your past and transcend it." His words echoed Grandpa's. I realized I could no longer flee. I resolved to go to Montana, not for reconciliation, not for forgiveness, but to look my parents in the eye and demand answers. Why they abandoned me, why they never apologized, why I was never enough for them. I aimed to stand before them, not as the terrified 14-year-old boy, but as Liam Carter, 29, who had forged a life from the wreckage. I began my preparations. Booked a bus ticket to Montana. Didn't wish to drive, preferring the journey to think. I checked the pocket watch, ensuring its continued operation. I folded the old photograph and tucked it into my wallet like a protective charm. I didn't inform Mia or anyone else. I desired to arrive unannounced to witness their genuine reactions. Part of me feared they wouldn't care, that I'd still be merely a shadow in their perception. But another part, the one Grandpa had imbued with strength, believed I could face any response they offered. The night before my departure, I sat in my apartment, gazing out the window. The rain had ceased, leaving glistening droplets on the glass. Rusty leaped onto my lap, nuzzling my hand. I stroked him, whispering, "I'll be okay, right?" But I wasn't certain if I was questioning Rusty or myself. I took a sheet of paper and penned a brief letter to Grandpa. "Grandpa, I'm returning to Montana. I don't know what I'll encounter, but I'm carrying your watch, and I'll strive to move forward as you instructed." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer alongside his old ones. Then I rose, packed my suitcase, and braced myself for the journey that would alter everything. The bus ride from Portland to Montana spanned over 10 hours. Rattling along winding roads and through endless fields, I sat by the window, observing the passing scenery, green hills, golden wheat fields, and the expansive Montana sky. The pocket watch rested in my hand, its steady ticking a second heartbeat. I touched the old photograph in my wallet. The 14-year-old boy huddled on a rest stop bench and wondered if my return was a mistake. But I had made my decision. I wasn't coming to reconcile. I was coming to confront. My parents' 30th wedding anniversary celebration was hosted at a grand estate on the outskirts of my hometown. When the bus halted at the station, I took a deep breath, retrieved my suitcase, and hailed a taxi to the venue.
Ow.
The estate appeared like a scene from a foreign painting, a large edifice with shimmering glass windows, a flawlessly manicured lawn, and strands of golden light strung like tiny stars. Soft jazz music drifted from a distance, intermingling with the murmur and laughter of guests. I paused at the gate, feeling like an outsider entering a world that didn't belong to me. Wore a dark blue dress shirt and simple slacks, respectful but not ostentatious. The pocket watch was in my pocket, and the old photo remained in my wallet. I hadn't told Mia or anyone I was coming. I wanted to witness their authentic reactions, not rehearsed greetings. As I stepped into the main hall, I was overwhelmed by the lavishness. Tables draped in white silk, glistening wine glasses, and a live band performing Fly Me to the Moon. The guests, predominantly my parents' friends and colleagues, were attired in suits and evening gowns, conversing and laughing, animatedly. I felt out of place, like an incomplete sketch amidst a flawless oil painting. Dad was the first to notice me, stood near the buffet table, holding a glass of wine, conversing with a man in a gray suit. When his eyes met mine, he froze, the glass tilting slightly in his hand. "Liam," he uttered, his tone not particularly welcoming, more like a mere acknowledgement. She looked up, her eyes flickering with surprise before settling back into their familiar impassivity. "You're here," she said, as if I were just another guest. No hug, no handshake, nothing. Mia was the next to perceive me. She emerged from the crowd, clad in a pale green dress, her blonde hair styled in a high updo, resembling a grown-up version of the little girl who once clutched her doll as I was left behind. "Liam?" she called, her voice attempting cheerfulness, but her eyes evaded mine. She offered a quick, awkward embrace. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, forcing a smile. I'm genuinely glad." "Are you?" I inquired, my voice soft but piercing. Mia blinked, not replying immediately.
I could tell she
wished to speak, but she merely motioned for me to join her at the buffet table, as if to circumvent any deeper inquiries. The party unfolded like a meticulously staged play. My parents, Robert and Ellen, stood on a small platform receiving applause as one of Dad's friends delivered a speech about their exemplary marriage. I sat in a corner of the room, sipping water, observing. Everyone laughed, clinked glasses, and applauded. But all I perceived was pretense. 30 years, and no one knew about the boy abandoned at a rest stop. No one knew about the years I lived like a specter in their home. As the guest speeches commenced, a hot surge ascended in my chest. I hadn't intended to do anything. I had only come to observe, to comprehend. But when the MC inquired if anyone wished to share, I rose, almost instinctively. All eyes turned to me. Mia seated a few tables away, her eyes widened. Mom clutched Dad's hand, a flicker of panic in her gaze. Dad simply glared as if he'd already anticipated my actions. I walked onto the stage, my heart pounding, but my steps unwavering. I had no prepared speech, only the pocket watch in my pocket and the photo in my wallet. I took a deep breath, surveyed the crowd, and began, "Hello, everyone. I'm Liam Carter, Robert and Ellen's eldest son." My voice emerged clearer than I anticipated. Today is a special day, celebrating my parents' 30th anniversary. But I'm not here to discuss love or family happiness. I'm here to recount a different story. The room fell silent. I observed Dad tighten his grip on his wine glass. Mom lowered her head. Mia covered her mouth, her eyes glistening with tears. I continued, my voice trembling but steadfast. When I was 14, our family went camping in Yellowstone. I accidentally tore a tent, and my father told me that if I couldn't care for things, I had to find my own way back. They got in the car, my parents, and my little sister Ann left me at a roadside rest stop, alone with no money, no phone. In the cold night, murmurs rippled through the crowd. I pulled out the pocket watch and held it aloft. I spent the night on a wooden bench, listening to trucks and wondering if I was truly part of this family. Fortunately, my grandfather Walter found me. He gave me this watch and told me that family isn't what you're born into, it's what you choose. I placed the watch on the main table, directly in front of my parents. This reminds me that I'm worthy of love, even if my family once thought otherwise. Dad sprang to his feet, his face flushed. Enough, Liam. It was just a misunderstanding. Are you trying to ruin this day? His voice was sharp, but I detected unease in his eyes. Mom remained silent, her eyes downcast, her shoulders trembling. Slightly, as if suppressing something, Mia burst into tears, stood up, and fled outside. I looked at Dad, unblinking. A misunderstanding? You call leaving your son alone on a highway a misunderstanding? I pulled out the old photograph and held it up for everyone to see. This is me, 14 years old, right after I was abandoned. If Grandpa hadn't arrived, I don't know what would have happened to me. The guests were astonished, some covering their mouths, others whispering. I turned back to my parents, my voice lowering but firm. I'm not here to spoil anything. I simply desire the truth. And the truth is, I've lived with that memory for 15 years, and no one in this family has ever apologized. I stepped off the stage. The atmosphere in the room felt heavy, as if all the light had been drained. I walked outside to find Mia. She was in the backyard, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Liam, she whispered, I'm so sorry. I didn't dare say anything back then. I was just a kid. I placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, I don't blame you, Mia. You were young and scared, I understand. She looked up, her eyes red, and for the first time in years, I felt a thread of connection slowly reigniting. Under the soft gleam of the golden lights in the estate's backyard, with the faint strains of jazz drifting from the main hall, we sat there, brother and sister, as if time had paused to permit a moment of healing. Mia wiped her tears, managing a faint smile. I always wanted to call you, she said, her voice trembling. But every time I picked up the phone, I was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't want to hear from me. Afraid you'd think I was like them. At her, the 25-year-old woman with her blonde hair tied high, still perceived the shadow of the 10-year-old girl who stood silently as I was forsaken. You're not like them, I replied. You were just trying to survive as I was. We sat there exchanging stories we had kept hidden for years. Mia spoke of her life as a lawyer, the long days at the office, the pressure to maintain a flawless image to appease our parents. I recounted Portland, Rusty, and the nights I sketched until dawn, seeking meaning in the lines on my screen. We didn't mention Yellowstone, but the memory lingered between us like a healed scar that still left a faint mark.
When we re-entered
The reception hall, the atmosphere had shifted. The guests were still laughing and conversing, but I could sense discreet glances directed my way. My parents stood in a corner of the room, speaking with a few friends, but they didn't look at me. I hadn't anticipated anything more. My speech had shattered the perfect facade they had attempted to construct, and I knew they wouldn't. Easily, pardon me. The next morning, as I prepared to board the bus back to Portland, my phone vibrated. A text from Dad. You humiliated us in front of everyone. Are you satisfied? I stared at the screen, feeling a surge of anger, but it wasn't as fiery as before. Instead, I felt relief. I had spoken the truth, not to wound them, but to liberate myself. I replied concisely and firmly. I only stated what happened. If you feel ashamed, that's not my fault. I sent the message, then turned off my phone, not awaiting a reply. Mia saw me off at the bus station. She embraced me, this time more tightly. More genuinely, "Will you return?" she asked, her voice brimming with hope. I smiled, the first authentic smile I'd had in Montana in years. "If you come to Portland, Rusty would love to meet you." She chuckled, and we parted with a promise, too. Maintain contact. This time, I believed she would. On the bus ride back to Portland, I reflected on what had transpired. I hadn't received forgiveness from my parents, and perhaps I didn't require it. But I had reconnected with Mia, and that was more valuable than I had anticipated. At the pocket. Watch in my hand continued its steady ticking, a reminder that I had progressed, just as Grandpa had affirmed. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected email from a stranger, a friend of Mia's, named Clara, who worked for a local Montana newspaper. She had been at the party and heard my speech. "I was moved by your story," she wrote. "I'd like to write an article about it, about emotional abandonment in families and how you overcame it. Would you be comfortable with that?" I hesitated. My story wasn't for display, but I considered Grandpa's letters, his words, that I was stronger than I thought. Perhaps my narrative could assist someone, just as he had aided me. I agreed. Clara came to Portland, and we sat in a small coffee shop where I recounted everything from the rest stop in Yellowstone to the years of building my own life. From the pocket watch to the speech at the party, she listened, took notes, and posed questions that compelled me to look deeply within myself. When the article titled "Left Behind and Found" was published, I read it with a peculiar sensation, like witnessing my life through someone else's perspective. The article narrated my journey, but it wasn't solely the tale of an abandoned boy. It was about resilience, about discovering family in the people you choose, and about the power of truth. The article gained traction faster than I expected. It was shared on social media, and I began receiving emails from individuals who said they, too, had felt abandoned, not just physically, but emotionally. A young woman wrote that she found the courage to leave a toxic family. After reading the article, an older man shared that my story reminded him of his own, and he had contacted his estranged son after years apart. Each email was a small ripple across the surface of my life's pond. An organization supporting a tryst. Youth in Portland reached out, inviting me to speak at an event. I wavered, uncertain if I was the appropriate person. But then I recalled the 14-year-old boy shivering at the rest stop, and I knew I had to do it. At my inaugural talk, I stood before a group of teenagers, their eyes filled with skepticism and pain. I brought the pocket watch and the old photograph, sharing my story. "Family isn't always the people you're born into," I stated. "Sometimes family is the people you choose, the ones who remind you that you're worthy of love." As I spoke, I saw some kids nod. Others wiped away tears. After the talk, a slender boy with disheveled hair approached me. "I felt like no one wanted me to," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I handed him the pocket watch, letting him hear its ticking. "Time will help you," I said, echoing Grandpa's words. "But you have to choose to move forward." Those talks became an integral part of my life. I began collaborating with the organization, sharing my story at schools, community centers, and even on podcasts. Each time I narrated it, I felt lighter, as if shedding layers of painful memories. The pocket watch and the photo transformed into symbols not just of suffering, but of endurance, of opting to progress. Mia and I started communicating more frequently. She visited me in Portland, bringing a bottle of wine and an old photo of us as children standing in front of Grandpa's farm. "I want us to be a genuine family," she declared. I nodded, understanding that this time we had an opportunity to begin anew. I sat in my small apartment under the soft illumination of the lamp, sharing tales of old days, of the rare instances we felt joy together. Rusty curled up on the chair, observing us as if he comprehended this was a special moment. I felt a sense of liberation, as if a part of me, long confined by painful recollections, was gradually being released. But that tranquility was fleeting. One Tuesday afternoon, as I was finalizing a design project, my phone vibrated. An unfamiliar number with a Montana area code. I frowned and answered. An older woman's voice came through, gentle but tinged with Concerned Liam, this is Helen, Walter's neighbor. I think you should know. Walter's not doing well. She paused. Out. He didn't want me to tell you. I didn't want you to worry, but I thought it wasn't right to keep it from you. My heart seemed to halt. Not doing well? How? I asked, my voice dry. Helen elaborated that Grandpa had been weakening over the past few months, coughing frequently, eating poorly, and had recently spent a few days in the hospital. He didn't want you to drop everything and come, she stated. But I believed. You needed to know. He's all alone. I hung up, my hands trembling. The pocket watch lay on my desk, its ticking louder than ever. I thought of Grandpa, the man who saved me from the rest stop, who gave me the resolve to move ahead. He didn't want me to know because he feared I'd fret. But how could I remain in Portland when he needed me most? I immediately contacted my employer requesting emergency leave. I have to go to Montana, I explained, offering no further details. I packed a few clothes, tucked the old photo and the pocket watch into my bag, and booked the earliest bus ticket. This trip to Montana was entirely distinct from the last. There was no internal conflict or curiosity about my family, only a cold, gripping apprehension. Fear that I wouldn't arrive in time. When the bus stopped in town, I hurried straight to Grandpa's farm. The wooden house was just as I remembered, but the vine-covered porch appeared weary, as if aging alongside him. Helen greeted me at the door, embracing me tightly. "You're here," she whispered. "He'll be so pleased." Grandpa lay in his old bed in the bedroom, frailer than I recalled, his wrinkle-lined face pale, but his eyes still vibrant, like to embers, that never extinguished. "Liam," he uttered, his voice weak but tender. "You didn't have to come, kid." I took his hand, feeling his thin fingers. "I want to be here," I responded. "With you?" The next 2 weeks were the most challenging yet, most significant in my life. I remained at the farm, caring for Grandpa. I prepared bean soup following his recipe, though it never quite matched his. I sat by his side, reading the letters we'd exchanged, informing him about Portland, about the talks I gave, and how my story had helped other children. He smiled. Weak, but proud. "You've done well, Liam," he said. "I always knew you were stronger than you thought." Mia visited occasionally when her law profession permitted. She brought flowers, sat by Grandpa, held his hand, and wept. "I'm sorry I didn't visit more often, Grandpa," she said. He simply patted her head, as he had when we were children. "You're here now, that's enough," he replied. Those moments, though brief, were the first time I felt we were truly a family, not with our parents, but with Grandpa, who loved us unconditionally. My parents, predictably, never visited. I called, texted, informed them Grandpa was declining. No response. Helen disclosed that the estrangement between Grandpa and Dad had begun long ago, even before my birth. Dad called him a stubborn old man, while Grandpa never forgave Dad for how he treated me. Their silence didn't surprise me, but it still pained me. I wondered how someone could turn their back on their own father, the man who raised them, the way they had turned their back on me. One morning, as the sun rose over Montana's fields, Grandpa passed away. I sat by his bed, holding his hand, listening as his breathing faded. He said little, just whispered, "Keep the watch, Liam, and keep yourself." Then he closed his eyes, his face serene. I sat there, quietly weeping, not from overwhelming sorrow, but because I knew he had lived a full life and bestowed upon me everything he had. I called Dad, my voice calm but cold. "Grandpa's gone. The funeral's this weekend." He merely stated, "I'm busy. Can you handle it?" I hung up, unwilling to hear more. Mia, upon learning the news, rushed to the farm immediately. She embraced me, sobbing, and we sat there in a house now filled solely with memories. Grandpa's funeral was simple, just as he was. Mia, Helen, a few neighbors, and I held it at the town's small church. No extravagant flowers, no lengthy eulogies, just a wooden coffin. A photo of Grandpa standing in front of his farm and the pocket watch I placed beside him, a pledge that I would continue to move forward. My parents didn't attend. I wasn't. Surprised, but Mia was. How could they do this? She whispered, her voice thick with anguish. I took her hand. They've made their choices, Mia. We make ours. More townspeople came than I anticipated. They shared anecdotes about Grandpa. The soldier who fought in wars, the resilient farmer, the neighbor always ready to assist. I stood up, sharing my narrative about how he rescued me from the rest stop, about the letters, about the watch. Grandpa wasn't just my family, I said. He was family to anyone who needed a place to belong. When I concluded, Helen embraced, me whispering, Walter would be so proud of you. After the funeral, I stayed in Montana for a few days to tidy up the farm. I discovered an old wooden box in Grandpa's room filled with letters and photographs. Among them was one I'd never seen. Me, perhaps 3 or 4 years old, standing beside Grandpa in front of the horse barn, both of us beaming. I kept that photo along with the pocket watch I retrieved from the funeral. They were the enduring pieces of Grandpa, fragments I'd carry forever. Back in Portland, I felt an internal shift. I continued to draw, share my story, and give talks. But now, I didn't just discuss the rest stop or resilience. I spoke of Grandpa. The man who imparted that family isn't about blood, but about love and choice. Mia and I maintained regular contact, and she began accompanying me to talks, sharing her own story of reconnecting with her brother and learning to forgive herself. These talks didn't merely aid the listeners. They helped us incrementally heal from old wounds. 6 months after Grandpa's funeral, I received a call from Mia. Her voice trembled over the phone, not with the usual excitement we shared when discussing new plans. Liam, she said, pausing as if searching for words, Dad has cancer lung. Cancer. The doctors say it's early, but the treatment costs are substantial. Mom and Dad are struggling financially, and I'm not sure they can manage. I sank onto the sofa, Rusty leaping onto my lap, as if sensing my tension. Cancer. I tried to envision Dad, the man always scowling, always labeling me a troublemaker, now battling something greater than his temper. I couldn't decipher my emotions. Anger, pity, or simply a cold emptiness. Are they okay? I inquired, my voice flat. Mia sighed. Dad's so worried she can't sleep. Dad. Why, he's still stubborn, refusing to admit he needs assistance. But I think they're struggling. She paused, then softly added, I just thought you should know. I hung up, staring out the window. Portland rain fell again, droplets streaking down the glass. I thought of Dad, of the years he never apologized, of how he abandoned me at the rest stop, of how he skipped Grandpa's funeral. Part of me desired to turn my back on them as they had done to me. But then I touched the pocket watch on the table, its steady ticking like Grandpa's heartbeat. Time heals, he'd said. But only if you choose to move forward. What did moving forward mean? Forgetting or forgiving? Her voice was weary, no longer carrying its usual detachment.
Actually,
She said, I know. You don't want to hear from me, but your father. He needs surgery. We don't have enough money. I didn't know who else to ask. A long silence stretched between us, like an invisible barrier. Can you help? She whispered, her voice almost imperceptible. I gripped the phone, anger flaring. Help. After everything they'd done. After they abandoned me. After they skipped Grandpa's funeral. I wanted to scream, to assert they didn't deserve it. Mom, I replied, my voice cold. I don't owe this family anything. Then I hung up, my heart pounding. Rusty looked at me, his golden eyes seemingly questioning my action. That night, I couldn't sleep. I held the pocket watch, opened the old photo of me at the rest stop. I thought of Grandpa, how he rescued me not just by taking me home, but by showing me I was worthy of love. He never instructed me to hate. He taught me that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, but choosing not to let it control you. I thought of Dad, not as the father who abandoned me, but as a man confronting mortality, and I knew I couldn't turn my back. I called Mia the next morning. Do you have Mom and Dad's bank account details? I inquired. I'll send money, but I want you to manage it. Don't tell them it's from me. Mia remained silent for a moment, then responded, "Are you sure, Liam? After everything?" I smiled, though she couldn't see. "I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me and for Grandpa," Mia agreed, and I transferred a sum from my savings knot. Everything but sufficient to cover Dad's surgery and treatment. In the ensuing months, Mia updated me on Dad's condition. The surgery was successful, and his recovery showed positive signs, though he required regular medication and a strict diet. Mom began calling Mia more frequently, asking about me, but I instructed Mia to simply say I was busy. I wasn't ready to speak to them, not ready to face them again. Then one day Mia called, her voice hesitant. "Liam, Dad wants to see you. He knows you helped, even though you didn't want him to know. He's changed, Liam. He wants to talk." I sat down, watching Rusty yawn on the chair. "See, Dad?" I pictured him sitting there, weakened from months of treatment, attempting to utter words he'd never spoken in my lifetime. But I didn't feel prepared. "I'm not there yet, Mia," I said. "Maybe someday, but not now." A few weeks later, a letter arrived from Montana. I recognized Dad's handwriting, firm but now slightly shaky. I opened it, my heart racing. The words sprawled across the page. "Unlike the man who only knew how to growl and criticize. Liam, I know I don't deserve to write this letter. It's wrong. Wrong for a long time. That day in Yellowstone, I let my anger take over and hurt you. I didn't apologize, didn't make it right, and I let you grow up feeling unloved. Your mother shares the blame, but I'm the most at fault. When I discovered you helped me through this illness, I didn't know how to thank you. You owed me nothing, yet you chose to assist. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want you to know I'm sorry. If you ever wish to meet, I'll be here, Dad." I read the letter, then folded it, placing it beside the pocket watch. I didn't cry, but I felt a wave of emotion swell, not anger, but a strange sense of relief. Dad had acknowledged his errors, something I never believed. He'd do. I wasn't ready to meet him, but the letter was enough to confirm I'd done the right thing by helping, not for him, but for myself. Life in Portland continued. I kept drawing, sharing my story, and now I incorporated a lesson about forgiveness. Erasing the past, but choosing not to let it define you. I told the teenagers at my talks, "You can't alter what others do to you, but you can choose how you respond." Forgiveness isn't about making them feel better. It's about setting yourself free. Mia and I maintained contact, and she became a significant part of my life. We weren't a perfect family, but we were family one constructed from broken fragments, from love and choice. Rusty still curled up beside me each night, and the pocket watch continued its steady ticking, reminding me that time doesn't merely heal, it grants you the opportunity to compose the remainder of your narrative. If I have any counsel for anyone carrying wounds from the past, it's this: don't let pain define you. Discover the individuals who recognize your worth, as Grandpa did for me. Cling to the things that remind you you're worthy of love, a photograph, or simply a kind word. And choose to move forward, not for others, but for yourself. Because in the end, family isn't where you're born. It's where you find yourself.